Good morning. I call to order the regular Board of Directors meeting for Butte Irrigation District for Wednesday, September 10th, 2025. Mr. Esslinger, would you please give the invitation?
Father, we are grateful that we can put you first before this board meeting is convened. We ask that your blessings and provisions are poured out on this board of directors, our staff, our employees, and the farmers of the Rincon and Mesilla Valleys. Father, we call upon you to bring the rain and snow to our mountains, fill our reservoirs, restore our aquifers. Droughts come and go. We ask for your blessings on our water resources to overflow. In Jesus' name.
Amen. Amen. Director Rosa, would you please lead us in the pledge of allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Going to do the introduction of guests. If we would start with Dr. Shigadance in the front row.
Jerry Shigadance, flat rate.
Karen Myron, EBID.
Nobody. Albert Brault, Office of
For the record, nobody is Mr. Sandy saying.
One General Michael Riley off the stage. Joseph Borges, Office State Engineer.
Good morning. Thanks for the invitation. Larry Vasquez, Reclamation, El Paso office.
Madam Secretary, would you please announce the guests that are in attendance online?
Absolutely. Today online, we have Anthony Collin. We have AJ Carlson from EBID. We have Delise Maciel from EBID. We have James Narvise from EBID, Josh Smith, EBID, JR Hennessy, Leah Diaz from EBID, Stephen Hernandez, and Scott Gamboa from EBID.
Thanks very much, Madam Secretary. I welcome you all to our board meeting, and I do appreciate your attendance, your interest in the workings of our irrigation district. I have had a request from Dr. Shigadance to provide a brief public comment. Without opposition, I will grant him his request. Dr. Shigadance, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to read this so I don't get off track here and take more of my time than you allow. As a retired educator, I feel I need to make the board aware of my sense of issues that might not have been on the radar of the board, but they're focused on the New Mexico Texas lawsuit and seating a new board of directors. The recent news of a settlement between Texas and New Mexico and the federal government is a somewhat negative article in the High Country News that I read yesterday prompted me to try to get on your agenda, and I thank you for the waiver of the protocol. I'm grateful that the lawsuit is over and settled in all of the warts and wrinkles it has. It is done, and now EBID can get on their business of supplying water to the farmers and being a good neighbor. The lawsuit has focused attention on who owns the water and how it's been divided up, not by the board, but by compact regulations. It has brought the attention on the water level in the Butte and the negative press on agriculture, the largest user of 80% of the fresh water in New Mexico. There was an article in the High Country News with their arrow pointed at pecan production. Raphael did a good job in representing pecan agriculture to the reporter. A couple years ago, there was a report titled Big Ag Fuels New Mexico Water Crisis and named pecans, dairy, and alfalfa. These kind of things get under my skin. Now, a couple of recommendations. EBID needs a focus on positive information on uses of water. The positive aspects of agriculture needs to be prominent. Make it part of a monthly agenda, maybe a podcast or some type of social media, as we don't have a local paper that reports local news. As I've stated before, flat raters should be your friend and speak up positively about the district and their service to the water users, big or small. I would like to see a board member with a public designation representing small tracts and small acreages. I think it should appear on your website that John Q. Public can see that they get representation along with the big farmers. Finally, I would like to see a small time slot on the agenda for public input, limited to more than 10 minutes on the agenda. If several want to speak, divide up the 10 minutes equally. You don't need to respond to the input, but make it available. I would be happy to attend a work session or any other format to expand on my ideas. I'm concerned where agriculture as an industry and higher education in agriculture is headed, with only 1 or 2% involved in production. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Dr. Shigedatsu. Appreciate that very much. Next on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda? Franjoy,
I'll be heading the engineering and maintenance update.
thank you for that note. Hearing no changes, without opposition, I will consider the agenda approved. That brings us to the board minutes for our special board meeting of August 21st, 2025. I had, one addition. They're requested of, Madam Secretary. In the section on discussion and approval of agreements, we have A, B, and C. A and B mentioned that the motion passed unanimously. C does not mention that. For consistency, I'd like to add motion passed unanimously to the end of C. Any other additions or corrections? Hearing none, I'll accept the motion to approve the minutes of August 21st, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion from Director Garai, seconded by Director Colquitt, to approve the minutes of August 21st, 2025. Any further discussion? Hearing none, discussion is closed. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Opinion of the president, the ayes have it, the motion passes. That brings us to the Budget Committee report. Director Sloan.
Mr. President.
I'm sorry, thank you very much. There is an additional thing to note. When we came out of closed session, I failed to mention that there were no items discussed in closed session other than those that were mentioned in the motion, which were the agenda closed session items. So I will do that at this time. At the end of at the closed session of the last meeting, there were no items discussed in closed session other than those in the motion to go into closed session. And we will have that correction in next month's minutes. Thank you very much. Was there anything else, Mr. Lewis?
None on my end.
Thank you. Budget Committee report, Director Swan.
Morning. I hope you guys have the committee report in front of you or. Yes. So the committee met 2 times in the last past 2 weeks, basically. We have a new committee member, our constituent member stepped off the budget committee, and we now have a new Josh Sanchez is now our new constituent committee member. So anyway, we met twice and we talked a lot about, there's a lot of uncertainty right now with the current water situation. I think it's really a challenge for the district to try to figure out how to do things. If you knew you were never gonna have water for the foreseeable future, you could really adjust things. We don't know what's gonna happen. So I think everybody's trying to do the best they can. So we spent a lot of time with Joa, Josh, and Leah to try to figure things out. We feel like they're really being very good stewards of the budget with the resources EBID has. But for this coming season, they feel that we recommend that we leave the assessment the same, the $100 or as what it was last year. Just kind of a footnote would be, I think as a board, we need to just be conscientious of what we can do. So maybe for our travel or where we recommend people to go to different conferences or things like that. I think just be good stewards of thinking that maybe we should analyze of who really needs to go and not be any excess at this point. So that's just something to kind of keep in the back of our mind for the current board members. And I think other than that, I think the main thing that we're going to just try to see is as things prolong, if we keep saying this tough drought, how we may have to make some more serious adjustments. But I think for right now, we need to stay on the course. Let's just hope we have more water. That's all I have.
Thank you, Director Sloan. Questions on the budget committee report?
Comment.
Director Ludwig?
Yes. In speaking to area growers, when they ask about the forecast for water for next year, I tell them there may be zero to very little. Their question is there any way to lower the assessment? I'm not saying that. My comment to them is I don't think there is, but that's the general concession what growers are feeling. They'd like to see it lowered a little bit since there isn't any water. Just a comment.
Thank you. I appreciate that input, Director Ludwig. Other comments or questions? I have a follow-up one for Director Ludwig. I have a long record of stating that the assessments of the district are inadequate for the maintenance of our district. I find myself in the position this year that I agree in not increasing the assessment, even though I think the assessment is already below what is necessary to maintain the district. There are significant stresses on the ag industry right now, and I think it is important that our district be mindful of that and not add to it. It is the odd day when, $20 an acre can make a difference. This is one of those days. As Director Sloan said, if we knew that we were never going to have water, or we weren't going to have water for 10 years, there are probably some things that we could do in reducing the activities of the district, and therefore shrinking our workforce. The workforce is the biggest component of our budget. And our water is ephemeral. Our talent is not. Our talent must be consistent. And we can't simply turn off the tap of our talent when the resources are short, if we want to continue being a district that strives to be world-class. But I am very sensitive to the fact that it is a difficult time, and how can we help out our members? Director Sloan?
Into that, add to that, I think there's a couple things that we gotta think about, and Joe is gonna talk more about this probably, but there's a lot of big construction projects that are coming up. And so even though we may not be delivering water, there's a lot of big grant opportunities, and if you don't have any people or you don't have a way to put these structures in, that these things that you do today might pay dividends off 10 years from now. And I think the hardest part is when we looked at even talking about trying to cut the budget, it's just hard to really, like Greg said, unless you really cut the staff, it's really hard to start lowering the budget. And you start lowering it a couple of dollars, it's no way to cut it in half, my point, so I think it's a lot harder than we all think it is.
There's not a lot of factor to cut.
Unless you really start to meet, yeah.
I can provide additional comment too.
Mr. Franzoy?
So one thing that I'll say, and it's kind of EBID's, mission, and obviously it's to deliver water to constituents. But the assessment is not based on water and water supply. It's based on maintaining the facilities that we have here at the district, reshaping all the canals, putting the appropriate infrastructure, turnouts in. And so it's not based on the water you get, it's based on the usage of the facilities to convey that water. Additionally, just because we're not, or we may not be delivering water next year, doesn't mean we're not gonna be needing full staff. Because we can move them all to construction projects and then get over into that in the budget.
Thank you, Mr. Franzoy. My second comment or question is on how the board should consider how to reduce travel. And I don't disagree, our traveling to conferences. I have advocated in the past specifically for staff, that we get staff to conferences for professional development. To be a world-class district, we need world-class talent. To have world-class talent, they require world-class training. And that's not cheap. I also recognize that things are rough right now. Do you have a specific recommendation on how, I guess, first, the board should look to reduce travel, and then the recommendation on how we should reduce travel at the staff level?
I think one thing that everybody feels like is with hopefully the legal matters slowing down, that's automatically gonna reduce some travel that we've had an excess of because of all the hearings and different things that we've had to attend. I do think for myself, I can speak that I've been to one conference, specifically 2 times, in Phoenix. There's no need for me to go. I've gone back to back that, but there's no need for me to go. And so I do think there's certain things that probably, if a board member's already attended, unless it's really necessary, maybe there's somebody else should go, or if they can't make it happen, there's no sense in going to conferences that kind of duplicate things, basically. That's just something I can think of that we could be aware of. And I think probably sending Josh and then having him come back to deal with some of the staff is probably a good way to use some resources. And it's just something to be thinking about as a board. That's one thing that we can directly affect is our travel.
Thank you, Director Copeland.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but legal should also, the bill should come down some, so that ought to help next year, huh? Hopefully, now that Tennessee, New Mexico settling.
I'm uncertain that that's accurate.
I will make my wishful thinking elsewhere. Yeah.
In fact, I specifically think that is inaccurate.
Oof.
But I think the travel there may be less travel for legal.
Okay.
Then
Save a couple
Yes.
thousand.
That might.
All right.
Well, I mean, if travel was only a couple thousand, it'd be easy. It will save truthfully probably tens of thousands.
Okay,
The cost of getting our team and boarding them like in Washington DC is outrageous.
yeah.
Thank you very much. Brings us to our next item on our agenda, which is water resources, which hopefully will be better news. Dr. King. All right, I'm not gonna set you up like that. We all know that. Not great. Never shoot the messenger. Never wait to deliver bad news.
Not so far, you haven't.
Deliver bad news early. That would they try to shoot you, I think. I hadn't considered the ramifications. When Dr. King delivered bad news and then it rains, that always feels better.
Yes, I just hope I'm slightly wrong.
Share your screen, Doctor.
Pardon?
You'll have to share your screen on the Zoom.
And how do we do that?
Thank you for assisting with that. And while that's happening for our guests that are attending virtually, if that's ever missing and you notice it, then please feel free to unmute yourself and just speak up so that we get it correctly. Thank you. Dr. King.
Hey, it's good to be here in person. It's been a little while, but it's nice to come on down and even meet new board members that I haven't met yet. This is a rundown on our, let me see if I can get this. On preliminary charges for the 2025 season. These are, I would stress preliminary. EBID, James's initial charge sheet had about 79,000 acre feet diverted by EBID, or charged to EBID. 104,000 for EP1, and that's a rough estimate. The El Paso charges always come last, because in order to calculate them, you have to have EBID done, you have to have Mexico done, and you have to have the Caballo release done. Then you do the EP1 charges. So that's still in progress, and I'm working with Dr. Blair on that. Mexico is coming in at 13,463. That is probably a pretty much final number for Mexico. They were allocated 13,450. So getting it to within 13 acre feet is pretty tight operations. Kudos to IBWC for that. The Caballo release then was 248,000. And this is unfortunately a very low release. Keep in mind that our normal release, normal in air quotes, is 790,000 acre feet. When we get below 400,000 acre feet, we consider it to be extraordinary, well, not extraordinary, extreme drought. When you get down to 248,000, it's downright painful. And that gives a diversion ratio of 0.79. In the April allocation, that is what we've been running on up until now. We used a diversion ratio of 0.75. So, and actually, when I estimated the diversion ratio at the beginning of the season, I came up with 0.79. Then I subtracted off one standard error, which is kind of a equivalent of a standard deviation for a regression, and wound up with a 0.75. So getting pretty confident in early season estimates of end of year diversion ratio. We are working on a follow-up allocation. It won't change Mexico at all. It will change the two districts slightly and keep us both positive. So it's more just procedural. Probably do that in the next couple of days. And then after that, it's on to the end of year allocation, which will be based on October 31st conditions.
Dr. King, I have a couple questions on the diversion. The first 0.79 seems remarkable for the low release season we had, especially given the fact that our sister district was on for roughly double the amount of time that we were on. Why is that? Why is it we had really that level of river performance conditions?
That really was right about where it fit.
What are the inputs that you're using that go into that projection for the diversion ratio?
I estimate the diversion ratio. It's a multiple linear regression, and the input variables are the current year's release from storage and the prior year's allotment to EBID. And I've looked at a lot of different input variables, current year release and previous year release, like the El Paso index is based on. But using the prior year's EBID allotment is actually even better than using a groundwater level indicator. It outperforms it, and it's sure a lot easier number to get.
Very good. Thank you, Dr. King.
Okay. I'll try to firm these up by our next meeting, but again, the final allotment doesn't come until we have October 31st conditions. So this is what it was looking like as of yesterday, and I think we're pretty consistent with all of this still. Got about 62.6 in Elephant Butte. That was up around 72, but reclamation just moved about 10,000 acre feet from Elephant Butte down into Caballo. You'll recall they had to, excuse me, they had to drain Elephant Butte, not Elephant Butte, they had to drain Caballo to clean out the outlet works. So they put water back into Caballo to protect the cultural resources there. That's a total project storage of about 76,000. Rio Grande compact credit of 7,200. San Juan Chama is 42,557, and that's as of August 1st. We've got got 13,000 not releasable. We already released 248,440, so we have a seasonal supply for for 2025 of about 300,000. And the net inflow into Elephant Butte, this kind of surprised me, but it's been negative for a little while now. And the reason you have negative net inflow is that the evaporation and other reservoir losses exceed the inflow from the river. They did just drop 10,000 acre feet out of Elephant Butte. That will trigger a little bit of release of bank storage, but we weren't seeing it as of yesterday. So that's a little worrisome, but unfortunately not altogether unexpected. This is what the river is looking like up and downstream. You've got
If I can interrupt you for a moment, what are the estimated carryover amount for the seasonal supply and snow storage? If you don't have it, it's fine. We can discuss it later.
No, I was just working with that yesterday. I think EBID is looking in the neighborhood of, I think, 9,000, and EP1 is like 14. But those are
That's close enough. Thank you.
my memory, and do not trust that. Okay, looking at the river, starting up at the upper left-hand corner, there is Otoe Bridge. That's, of course, a key compact gauge. You'll notice the yellow line is the 54-year median, and we have been well below that pretty much all year long. You'll notice it gets a little spiky down there at the end. Those are various operational and flood flows. Looking at the other two, note on the graph where zero is. You'll notice that the Rio Grande at Albuquerque is essentially zero with the occasional little arroyo flow in there. Same with San Marcial, it's dry. And the gauges between Albuquerque and San Marcial, of course, is at the head of Elephant Butte Reservoir. That's why we've got negative 250, is because there's nothing coming down the river. Most of the gauges are intermittently dry. When they are wet, it'll be a quick little flash, and there may be, a little trickle flowing through, but the river is extremely dry right now. Our precipitation improved very slightly, probably not enough even to call it significant. We're sitting at slightly below average throughout the watershed, and that is based on a 30-year average. So the 30 years are going to be 1991 to 2020. So you've got basically a wet decade and two dry decades in there, although the dryness of the 2000s and 2010s is not so much precipitation dryness, it's heat dryness. In other words, aridity is more caused by heat than by lack of precipitation. Looking forward, this is December, January, February, which is basically when I start paying attention to what the snowpack is looking like. And there's not a real strong signal either way. Basically, we're leaning below for the upper watershed to leaning below average precipitation throughout the Rio Grande watershed. But the signal on temperatures, you can pretty safely say we're going to be above average.
That looks like an ENSO negative pattern. Are we in an ENSO negative?
Ending that way.
Okay.
The drought monitor has intensified slightly. we're still in kind of a, by, the standards of the last 20 years. We're in a reasonably mild drought in that we're not all this dark brown color the way we have been through some of the roughest years. Looking at the seasonal, this actually is improvement down here in the lower part, but the upper part of the watershed where the big water comes from remains in persistent drought. You asked about INSO, and back to INSO we are. For those of you who are not familiar with this graph, it's one that engineers like because it's a whole lot of information jammed into a very small space. What the vertical axis here is the date starting from a year ago down to now. And from left to right, it is sea surface temperature anomalies, that is deviation from the average temperature along the equator, looking 5 degrees north and 5 degrees south. And so what you see here is with these temperatures throughout the Central Pacific were a little bit on the warm side, but now they are essentially neutral in the eastern half of the eastern part of the Pacific. And we are classified as ENSO neutral. I say that we could be considered to be a little bit negative because they're kind of rethinking the way you calculate the El Nino Southern Oscillation Index. But there is a chance of La Nina forming up, which is consistent with the dry forecast for our snow season that you just saw.
When are they considering recalculating?
Well, this was quite a hot topic a couple of 3 months ago. They're considering what you use as a reference because the ocean overall is warmer. So you might get something that is cooler, a little bit cooler than average, but a lot cooler than what the rest of the ocean is doing. And that would be more La Nina-ish than just what the index, the traditional index would indicate. So.
Do they use that for their averaging temperature? Do they use, similar 3-decade?
I remember off the top of my head, they all kind of run together after a while.
Thank you.
I'm not sure that they do. I have to go check on that. In summary then, there's a nice fallow field for you, thanks to Governor Roverosa. The Caballo clogging was handled, reclamation, thank you very much for that. It was a very tough water supply year, obviously. We have what I would consider pretty dismal storage. To give you some idea of how dismal it is, we had less storage in 2018. We got down to 58,000 in Elephant Butte. We're right now at 62,000. In 2018, we had 58,000 in Elephant Butte. And then we got massive snow in 2019. You'll recall that was the best recent snow year we've had. That looks pretty unlikely from the forecast. There's no indication that we're going to have another banner year at this point. In 2013, we got down to about 60,000. So we're down there with the worst years of recent history. We did get lower back in the 70s and in the 50s. We haven't seen numbers like that, but certainly for recent times, this is seriously bad starting storage. Hot and dry forecast. And what I would say is that you can anticipate a late initial release. And if we get a little help, 4 to 6 inch allotment is probably the range I would suggest planning for at this point. However, I would caveat that it could be worse if we don't get some inflow, and I don't exactly know where that inflow would come from at this point. It could be worse than 4 inches. Well, with that, I would field any questions.
This is for Dr. King on his report. Dr. King, we've never formally discussed it, but we have informally. It's possible that we will have an allotment of less than 4 inches. At what point should this board be considering that that the allotment is too low for our system to be capable of delivering?
That is certainly a question that we should be considering. My recommendation, because we are pretty integrated, I would suggest we have a discussion with the El Paso district to talk about strategies for exactly what we do if it gets down to that level. What we do will affect what they do, and what they do will affect what we do. So I think it's best to coordinate and collaborate on coming up with a strategy.
Thank you, Dr. King. So my experience has been that allotments below 4 inches are extraordinarily difficult to get to all of our farm gates. And so as bad as it is being allotted 3 inches, it's even worse to be allotted 3 inches and be incapable of taking delivery. 4 inches is very difficult. Very difficult. As we saw this year, 6 inches, while unpleasant, seems to be manageable by our district. Our district did a very good job this year of delivering the water. We need to be prepared to have hard discussions. And hopefully in getting the word out early for our members to be considering it and get us feedback on when we leave the water in the reservoir, and hope that more will show up before the next season.
Mr. Chairman, I think we've got James Narvaez on the line, and I would certainly wonder what he has to say about it. But in 2013, that's the only time in the history of the district that we've been under 4 inches. We were at 3.5 that year. And that was before we were so heavily committed to the fast and furious delivery thing. I think if we had a 3.5 or possibly even 3, we could probably get it around. But again, I would be interested to hear what James would have to say about that.
Mr. Narvaez.
Yes, sir. Yes, and if I could jump in, yeah, for sure. We've done it before, because we had to. And surely we've improved a lot of things. We have a lot of different pipelines now in there, and we've taken on different strategies. We have better real-time data to work with. Can we do it? Yes, it's just going to be a real focused event, and we'll just have to communicate plans to the farmers of how we're going to do that. 6 inches gives you a little bit more flexibility because you have an extra week to week and a half to work with. But you set your hard and fast dates beginning and ending, and that's how we put it out there instead of us lingering at the end like we've done in the past where we'll see where it goes. It's better just to say, here, we're running for 30 days. And this is when we start, this is when we stop. And that's how you get the motivation from the farmer to put the orders in and, go that route. There's a lot of different strategies, obviously, but we've done it before. And we've done it before without the kind of technology we have today. So I would see that it'd be something, difficult, but at the same time, we've done it before. So I don't see an issue with 4 inches. That's something we can do.
Thank you, Mr. Narvaez. Do you remember how many days we ran this year to do 6 inches?
We're at about 35, 36 days. We could have gone to 40, I would say, but towards the end, the rain really hampered us in being able to do that. Farmers just you know, there are a lot of fields that were still wet and there was no way they were gonna dry up before we could get back to restart it up. So we could have gone the full 40 days that we had predicted, but we're more so around the 35 to 38 days.
Thank you, Mr. Narvaez. Director Colquitt.
Dr. King, why do you suggest a June 1 release? And why not say May or just, why June?
Oh, that's just a rough, you know, when we do have these real short allotments, we say June 1st, but really that, depending on what day of the week it falls on, we might start May 28th. I think we did
It's
this
just
year.
arbitrary.
So it should, well, it's not arbitrary, but about that time of year, because that's getting into peak demand. And so beginning of June, end of May, call it June 1st.
Okay.
Here's another thing to consider there, Mr. Cope, it is June 1st, and this is what's gonna be different about this year, and that's why we gotta keep watching it. But in previous years, we've usually been able to say we're close to that 4-inch and make an announcement about June 1st is something that we feel comfortable with. But this year, being that we may not really fully realize that allotment till middle of May, late May, you know, that day could very well move. It just depends on what's actually in the lake. And that's where we're running into the problem with this forecast, is because we don't have it in the lake right now. Before, we at least would expect something to look at, and then we can make make that allotment easily, but this time we will be waiting for water. Correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. King, I think that's what we're gonna be looking at.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. Director Ludwig.
You know, our questions for James. 3 or 4 inch allotment, would that be like a 2 or 3 week run?
Yes, we'll be getting close to 30 days for sure. That's about it.
Director Clayshaw.
One of the reasons for June 1st is for the cotton guys, they're drilling in the water for the first irrigation after planting in June, or lets them use their water.
Other questions or comments? Dr. King, your insight is appreciated. Helping us to guide our planning. That brings us to general administrative. We have the financial report. It's Byron.
Jerry.
So, good morning. Hopefully that's big enough. For your cash flow report for this month, I did it on the 4th. It still looks pretty good for the year. The large uncommon payments, we bought some pipe for constituent project. We made our quarterly BOR payment for September 1. We got some money in for some right-of-way licenses. The investment activity, if you're gonna compare the years, you need to take out about $1 million, both transfers in and transfers out. Because those were for financing the grant and to make them comparable to the previous years. We're still ahead of where we were last year. But if you look at the activity, we're fitting in kind of between 23 and 24 as far as how things are going. I stand for questions.
Questions on the cash balance statement? Hearing none. Brings us to the approval of professional financial services contract, with Clifton Larson Allen. Mr. Francois.
So here's the professional service contract for CLA or Clifton Larson Allen. This is kind of a bit of EBID succession planning for the finance department. I will note that Karen Byram will be retiring November 29th of this year. The breakdown for the scope of work in this, I'm gonna be brief. If you want me to expand on it, please stop me. But it's for outsourced accounting services, system implementation and support, software systems and consulting, internal controls and compliance review, audit and potentially single audit support, accounting policy, education and training, budgeting and reporting support, ongoing financial advisory, and various other deliverables is requested.
Thank you. Mr. Franzo, would you please try to briefly explain the, how to put it? The financial operations plan for the district, what things are we going to continue doing here in the district? What things are we outsourcing to?
So in the interim period, when Karen retires versus, will probably be somewhere around December, January, which is when we'll look to hire a controller to fill that position. They'll be kind of outsourcing our current operations to them, and then they'll be working with the controller as well as Leah and myself on the various, accounting of the district. And so they'll be here only until I believe we said March. And then that'll be kind of the training period, get all our systems operational, make sure all our controls are good, and we should be done with the services by then.
So we're only looking to use them for transitional services. We're not looking for a long-term outsourcing of our.
We'll have that capability. However, the plan as of now is only to use them until March, but we might bring them back to help out with next year's audit. And potentially if we do have a single audit next year, which I don't think we will, but if we do have that, we have that functionality to be able to leverage them.
Thank you, Ms. Franzoy. Other questions on the professional services contract? Mr. Glacial.
Why are we not looking for a new controller now?
We will be opening that position here shortly. We gotta draft it up and then post it, so we will be looking for that here in the near future.
Other questions? Hearing none, what is the will of the board?
I move to approve the contract. Second.
I have a motion from Director Sloan, seconded by, was it Director Colquitt?
Correct.
To approve the professional financial services contract to Clifton Larson Allen LLP. Discussion. Hearing none, discussion is closed. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Being the president, the ayes have it. The motion passes unanimously. Budget presentation. Franzoy.
So I'm gonna give you guys kind of the management perspective of the budget. I did pass out some handouts. You guys should see that in front of you. This is what the handout looks like. I'll quickly go over the highlights of the budget and why things have changed and leave it open to you guys for some questions. So starting off, our revenue is about the same. However, we should see a lot of increase in that, given that we're doing some bids on construction projects. And I'm not forecasting in licenses and agreements in there, so we should see a little bit of an uptick there in terms of our revenue. Rollover cash is about the same. Some of that is coming from potentially a construction project that we just submitted bids for last week. A pretty large majority of that, over half, I think, what we submitted was in the ballpark of about 400,000. The next item for revenue is going to be grant revenue. The bulk of that is going to be the Interstate Stream Commission contracts. Once those come in, we'll be looking at having those, I believe, sometime, hopefully next week or the week after. Josh will be reviewing that with the Interstate Stream Commission on Friday. Labor and fringes is relatively the same. The reason that we don't see a large uptick in that is due to me reducing the overtime hours to fit next year's irrigation season outlook. That number can decrease significantly if we do not have an allotment and no overtime for our irrigation department. Legal expense, I estimated about a 25% reduction in water legal counsel due to Texas v. New Mexico settlement. We'll see kind of where that goes. Consulting expense, this increase is due to the external accounting RFP that you guys just approved. The Bureau of Reclamation expenses are increase in billings from the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation, and that's to maintain the Elephant Butte Dam. Our vehicle and lease expense, that's increased, but we are pretty much fully replaced in terms of all of our fleet vehicles. I think that we're considering 2 more vehicles, but then, you know, all that will be wrapped up. Our insurance premiums increased for insurance liability. We did have a decrease in our internet provider costs of about 20,000. That was just switching to a different internet provider. Our software expense and telephone mobile will remain relatively the same. The increase in the telephone mobile is that we will be transitioning a lot of these flip phones to smartphones and making sure, you know, we're getting them protected with the cases and screen coverings. But it will be cheaper because we do not have to pay for the increase in data usage on the smartphones like we do the flip phones. Department supplies, the biggest increase related to that is for the SCADA department's metering boat. This is a device that they utilize to go out and take metering notes for the various canals. However, if we do not have an irrigation season next year, we will remove that from the budget in our Q1 budget adjustments. Heavy equipment repairs and maintenance, this has been reduced. However, a portion of that reduction was moved to our fleet repairs and maintenance, which we were really tight in our budget this year for that. Our fuel is based on analysis I went over with the budget committee. It includes a 20% escalation factor. Looking at the forecast for fuel over the next 5 years, every indicator says that the cost of fuel is going to go down. However, I just like to be prepared and budget conservatively for those matters. Our uniform and boot expense increased by about 8 to 12,000 range. I forget the number, but that's increasing our boot rebate from 125 to 175 for employees. Training and travel is a decrease of 20,000 or an increase in 20,000. And this is just to provide more training and travel for employees to get the expertise that they need. And given kind of to James's point, the various board members traveling, we just kind of want to buffer for that. Machinery and equipment costs, we are not doing a ton of capital expenditures. I just submitted to the Department of Finance financing of our heavy equipment this year. So that'll be kind of what we're looking to pay for principal and interest. Computers and printers should relatively remain the same. Josh has tasked me with putting together an asset management plan to forecast the district in the next, 10, maybe potentially 20 years. We'll take a look at that. That'll show all computer replacement, all structures replacement for turnouts, head walls, things of that nature, and our vehicles and equipment. Our interest expense has increased. That's just due to the interest that we're paying on our fleet vehicles. And then our grant expense has also increased, but that nets out with our grant revenue. And we are forecasting a net zero budget. However, I think we'll end up somewhere positive depending on some factors that occur throughout the year. And so this is in the DFA format, and staff recommends approval of the budget for fiscal year 26.
Questions for Mr. Franjoy? Mr. Glacial?
You have a clue why Reclamation bumped up their expense so much?
I will be looking into that based on kind of what they sent over. It was some maintenance on the Butte Dam. Those costs are shared with EP1 and the Bureau. And I will be taking a deeper dive into that. They have increased since I've been here. And so I'll be looking at what those increases pertain to, and I can provide a report if requested.
One of the things that kind of bothers me about it is we did that tour of the dam, they're working on the turbines. Granny says we get no revenue off of electricity, so I wanna make sure we're not paying to maintain those turbines, because we're not getting anything out of it. And long term, I'm wondering where the money for the power goes. Salt Lake City is what I'm told, but what does that mean? Means we ain't getting it.
Director Copeland, what's a SCADA boat?
So it's a metering device. It looks like a little RC boat that they drop in the laterals and canals. And what that does is it has a Doppler meter, if I'm not mistaken, on it. So that way they can take meter notes and measurements for EBID's diversions.
Wow.
They think the regular station.
This one.
Not a vast matter.
Any other questions?
Mostly comment. I appreciate the budget and I certainly do not have any recommended changes, but some things I want to note. In looking at our vehicle and machinery and equipment expense, it's about $350,000. It's been running about $350,000. That's essentially our capital expenditure annually on our equipment, the stuff that moves. Mr. Franzo, do you have any idea what the base asset value is on? If you added up all of our vehicles and equipment?
I think the vehicles is somewhere in the ballpark of about $1 million. The heavy equipment I'd have to get back to you on, but it's up there, a couple mil.
I would suggest it's closer to 10.
Yeah.
But I could be mistaken. The reason I note this is in my comments about the need for increased assessments, the district has been and continues to live off the depreciation of our equipment. We're working hard to find ways to rethink how we keep our fleet at a reasonable age while working within the budget. But the depreciation of our equipment and our vehicles is more than $350,000 a year for the district. And yet that's what we've been allocating to it. Similarly, our building maintenance, I don't know what the total asset base of our buildings are. Maintenance is a reasonable substitute for depreciation of buildings. And our building maintenance is $100,000. My rule of thumb is that if you have a structure that 5% of its construction cost is what it costs to keep it every year. We have significantly more than $2 million in structures at the district. Those are the things that I see that concern me. This isn't the year to correct that. This is the year to live off depreciation. This is a year that most of our members are living off their depreciation. But you just can't keep doing it forever. And if we get to then adding in the largest asset of the district, which is our irrigation infrastructure, numbers through the roof. We have, like, I don't know, what's the asset base of our irrigation infrastructure? 100 million. All right, what's a reasonable amount that we should be spending to keep that, at design functionality? It's in the millions. Where is it in our budget? We kind of sort of have it in maintenance. But the replacement of structures that have a service life is something we have not been doing. We are living off the depreciation of our rolling assets. We're living off the depreciation of our irrigation infrastructure, and it can't go on forever. That is something that this board and future boards need to be mindful of. Thank you. I appreciate you allowing me to.
Yeah, I think that last point is really important and a great point. So by the January board meeting, I'll have put together the replacement cost and forecast for replacing all of the structures for the district. That's every turnout, head wall, concrete structure, everything. And so I'll build a forecast for that along with the rest of the asset management plan, and then we can kind of have a forecast for what to expect in terms of assessment increases and things of that nature.
I appreciate that. I really do think that that will illuminate why I'm saying $150 an acre. That's what it takes today. Yeah,
And most of the grant revenue for the Interstate Stream Commission is primarily about $11 million worth of equipment. And we already spent about 2.5 million. And then the bulk of that is for the rest of equipment. So we will be getting a lot of equipment that we can utilize for flood control purposes and rehabilitation on our drains and dams. So that'll be a huge effort to that effect.
thank you very much. I appreciate because I forgot to ask about that. We don't have $11 million in construction we're trying to do that.
No, not yet.
Yeah, it would be difficult to scale that rapidly.
Something else, if I could just go over this really quick. See, I thought I saved it in. I don't think I did save it in there. But I can give it a future update, hear about all our grant revenues and projects once they're a little bit more solidified. That way I can just keep the board up to speed on that.
Thank you. Any additional questions before we take action? Hearing none, we have resolution 2025-12 in front of us. It is the budget adoption fiscal year November 1st, 2025 to October 31st, 2026. And calendar year January 1st, 2026 to December 31st, 2026. What is the will of the board? Move to approve the budget.
Second.
There was a motion from Director Robert Rosa, seconded by Director Christ to approve the budget and resolution. That's close enough. Discussion. Hearing no discussion is closed. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? In the opinion of the president, the motion passes unanimously, approving resolution 2025-12. Mr. Franzoy.
One last comment is that if anybody, constituent or board member wishes to review the budget with me in greater detail, I'm happy to accommodate that.
Thank you, Mr. Franzoy. Managers update, we have an update on the board election. Ms. Crawford?
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. I did want to let you know that the notice of election has been published in the Las Cruces Sun News and on the EBID website. The election will be held Tuesday, December 2nd, 2025. It is an even election year, so elections will be held for precincts 2, 4, 6, and 8. Petitions for director candidates are now available and can be obtained by contacting the manager's office at the district. Any qualified elector, which is defined as one who is 18 years of age or older, who is the owner of 2 or more acres of agricultural land within the district, who is a citizen of the United States, is eligible to be a candidate for director. To have your name placed on the ballot, submit a petition with 20 or more electors' signatures 30 days before the election. The petitions are due on October 31st, 2025. Constituents can obtain, as I mentioned earlier, a petition by contacting the manager's office at the district. The canvass of the ballots will be held on Monday, December 8th, 2025. The board will need to decide whether to reschedule the regularly scheduled board meeting for December 10th or call a special meeting for the canvass of votes. And that's all I have, if there's any questions.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Director Colquitt.
Petition submittals we need to submit petitions October
31st,
31st.
2025, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions regarding the election update? Mr. Luce, do you have anything to add? No. Very much. Madam Secretary, thank you. I will mention again. Candidates, I am a proponent of having candidates. Encourage people to run for the board. That is the best way for our members to communicate to us how we are doing. When there's only one candidate, there's very little reason to show up and vote. Candidates are important. Calendar of events, Mr. Franzoy.
So starting tomorrow, we have the New Mexico Water Law Conference. That'll be tomorrow and the day after. Location will be in Santa Fe. Travel was approved on the July 9th board meeting. We will have the Southern New Mexico State Fair. Staff will be there with their water trailer under the pavilion. That'll be September 24th through the 26th in Las Cruces. We have the Coalition of Rio Grande Water Users Conference. That'll be September 30th through October 2nd in Santa Fe. Alex and Marilyn will be there in attendance, and we have travel approved for 2 board members, but the slots are empty. So does anybody wish to attend that?
Yeah, I'll go.
Thank you very much, Director Glacial.
When do you want?
September 30th through October 2nd.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to go?
It's the most relevant conference of the year. Director Ludwig. Thanks both very much. If you would coordinate with Madam Secretary for your travel, I would appreciate it.
Next, we have the hearing for Texas versus New Mexico is the same dates as the coalition, and that'll be September 30th through October 2nd. That will be in Philadelphia. Travel was approved at the last board meeting. We have 2 board members going, but have travel approved for up to 4 board members.
I believe we only have 1 board member going now. Who are the 2 you have?
I am uncertain.
I believe it was myself and Director Roby Rosa, and Director Roby Rosa cannot attend. Is that correct, Director Rosa? I believe I'm the only one going to Philadelphia. Helping out with your reduction in travel recommendation during each storm.
Much appreciated.
Yeah. That said, Director Colquitt,
What are the dates?
September 30th through October 2nd.
Oh, we're talking about Santa Fe.
we're talking about Philadelphia, the overlap, they are the same.
Oh, boy.
Travel is on the 28th, is it not?
On Sunday.
Yes,
I will have an answer for you by the end of the meeting unless you need to know right
I
now.
don't need to know at this moment.
Okay,
The end of the meeting is fine,
okay.
because the travel's approved, we just need to know who's going, so that,
September 30th.
Depart, the 28th.
yeah.
Oh, okay. Depart 28th and arrival when?
Return the 2nd, is that?
Of October.
Okay.
Oh, boy, that's soon.
But we have our next board meeting set for October 8th of next month. Then we have the 70th annual New Mexico Weary Annual Water Conference. That'll be October 21st through the 23rd at the New Mexico Farm and Ranch Heritage Museum here in Las Cruces. Since it's local, we should have as many people attend as possible. Next, we'll have the Family Farm Alliance.
Before we pass on that, if we're gonna have a quorum there, we need to note that. I have it on my calendar to attend that. Do we know the cost of registration for that conference? Usually it's ridiculously inexpensive, but,
It has gotten a little expensive.
oh, it's gotten expensive now, okay. Thank you.
I'll look it up.
I'm gonna look that up.
I'm on the organizing committee, I should know that, but
The travel's reasonable though.
The travel is very reasonable. The travel is 0. So. The Farm and Ranch Heritage Museum this year. It's an excellent conference to attend. It is often attended by state water policymakers. It's a good time for our, good opportunity for our governance and staff to interact with them, so I would encourage attendance. I plan to attend, and do we need any approval for those conference expenses, Mr. Francois? Because there's no travel,
I can get back to you on that.
okay? Thank you, please continue.
Next, we have our Family Farm Alliance Annual Meeting and Conference. That'll be October 30th through the 31st in Reno, Nevada. Requesting approval for travel. Likely this will be 2 board members and 1 staff.
If we could, let's get through the NWRA conference, and then we'll discuss both of those together. Okay.
The next on the calendar is, as Marilyn mentioned, the election petitions due October 31st. Shortly after that, on November 1st, I am hosting a horseshoe tournament for the Chamber of Commerce. I will be sending out invitations to all of you guys. That'll be at the Fairgrounds Rodeo Arena, the 1st of November. Then we have our NWRA 2025 Annual Conference. That'll be November 5th through the 7th in Tucson, Arizona. We'll be requesting travel approval for that. I believe I am speaking there. I think we have 1 other staff member speaking there, but I'm uncertain who that is.
Thank you. A reminder that the annual conference for NWRA is our opportunity to meet with the Commissioner of Reclamation. We generally have a 15-minute slot there to discuss high-level requests of reclamation. So it is a critical conference to attend. Well, plainly put, I'm not interested in going to Reno and Tucson. I am willing to go to Tucson. I think we should have somebody go, one of our board members go to Reno. Mr. Sloan. What's the thoughts of the budget committee on how many directives we should be sending to these conferences?
This is just a thought, if we postpone this till October 8th meeting, is that still give us time? Just so Josh is here and.
Probably not for Reno. Cause it's October 30th and 31st, and there's gonna need to be. Yeah, hotel and. Yeah, that's awfully tight, we wait until then. It's Josh online. That's a good question, Mr. Smith.
Mr. President, I believe you and Raphael are on the agenda for the NWRA meeting.
Okay. I suggest that Mr. Rovirosa and myself attend the NWRA meeting.
You've been told.
And likely 1 staff there.
So, to address, the budget committee's recommendation, Mr. Sloan, did you have a question for Mr. Smith about the Reno? Or if there are additional board members we should send to Tucson?
Yeah, I would just say, I guess I would look at Mr. Smith's recommendation for either one of those conferences. Obviously, traveling to Tucson is a lot cheaper than traveling to Reno. So I guess I'll just look to see what he suggests, especially for staff or on that regard.
I will mention, I'm not entirely sure. These NWRA conferences tend to be at expensive locations. So it is possible that getting there is less expensive, but staying there is more. Mr. Smith, do you have a request on how many board members and staff will attend the FFA and the NWRA conferences?
No, I have never attended a Family Farm Alliance meeting, so I'm not sure what that conference structure is. For me personally, that's a very bad time. I don't believe I'm able to attend that. So if there are board members who wish to attend, we need to approve their travel, but I would think 2 members going to that meeting is sufficient if there are board members that want to travel. And then NWRA, that is a meeting where there's going to be action taken on amending the bylaws. I believe we need to be there for that. Um, I will leave it up to the board how many board members need to attend, but I think no more than 4. So we don't have to deal with quorum issues, and we also limit our travel expenses.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Director Roverosa, I believe you are the board member that most recently attended FFA. I don't remember if anyone went with you, Director Ludwig and Director Rye. I'm interested in your opinions on what we should be doing for sending governance and staff FFA. Director Roverosa.
Thank you, Mr. President. I believe that, we should focus our resources on NWRA for this year. And either not send a contingent or send one staff member to FFA.
Director Ludwig, Director Garai, do you have different opinions?
I concur with all.
So, Mr. Roverosa's, suggestion was that we approve travel for up to 1 staff member to Family Farm Alliance. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, I'm gonna ask to wait on a motion as we discuss NWRI as well. Mr. Long, do you have an opinion on how many governors we send to NWRA?
I think 2, if you guys both put in the agenda, I think 2 is a reasonable number, so.
I don't disagree.
I think on the Family Farm Alliance, I think it's, as far as board member goes, if nobody can even attend, there's no sense wasting a lot of effort of trying to figure out approving people if you can't even go.
I mean, it's
I won't be able to go myself, so.
back to back with NWRA, it's awfully tough. All right. There are the recommendations. What is the will of the board? Let's start with Family Farm Alliance.
I move to approve up to 1 staff member, travel for 1 staff member, Family Farm Alliance.
For all actual expenses on that, Mr. Franzoin? For all actual
expenses.
I have a motion from Director Roverosa to approve travel for 1 staff member to the Family Farm Alliance annual meeting. Seconded by Director Colquitt. The motion is for all actual expenses. Discussion. Hearing none, discussion is closed. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The opinion of the president, the ayes have it. The motion passes unanimously. NWRA 2025, what is the will of the board?
I move to approve travel for 2 board members and 2 staff members, up to 2 board members and 2 staff members, all of the expenses incurred, all actual expenses.
I have a motion from Director Roverosa to approve travel for 2 board members and 2 staff members to the NWRA 2025 annual conference for all actual expenses incurred. Okay, seconded by Director Swell. Discussion. Mr. Smith, is 2 staff members sufficient? Mr. Franzo, you have a comment?
Yeah, we can approve up to 2 staff, but likely 1 will just go.
Very good. Is there any need for any of our consultants to attend NWRA? All right, not hearing any suggestion that there is, so the motion is sufficient. Any other comments?
Mr. President,
Mr.
I
Smith.
did get an email from Dylan this morning with a form to fill out to request our 15-minute meeting with the Bureau, which will be happening at that meeting. So if we have consultants or technical people that need to be there for that type of meeting, just so you're aware.
Thank you. We do have time to amend our travel if that's necessary. Dr. King, I have no recollection of you ever attending that. The meeting with the Reclamation Commissioner at NWRA.
Maybe 1 time.
Many moons ago.
Okay, so it's not common for us to have our hydrologic consultant. We have had engineering attended. So our 2 staff members in the motion would presumably cover that. Any other comments? Thank you, Mr. Smith. Hearing none. Discussion is closed. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any of the president, the ayes have it, the motion passes unanimously. Mr. Franzoy.
Lastly, we have save the date, EBID's board election will be held December 2nd.
Thank you very much. Any question on the calendar of events?
Mr. Chairman,
Dr. King?
we looked up the WRI meeting and it's $150.
Okay, yeah. These are very, it's a very reasonably priced conference. I would encourage board members to attend. Madam Secretary, you can enroll me.
Which conference was it?
The WRRI, what we call the Annual Water Conference.
The Farm and Ranch.
Yeah, thank you. Can I decide later if I want to go?
Yes,
Thank you.
I suspect you could decide the day before.
I'll go with you to Philadelphia.
We have two directors in Philadelphia. Thank you, Director Paul. All right, that brings us to HR safety update. I have, Mrs. Maciel for that. Is that who's presenting, Mr. Franzoy? Oh, she's right here.
I did want to make a correction to it. We have hired 2 backfill positions for the central ditch rider and the north ditch rider. So our count is actually at 83. And then under our FMLA, we have 5 employees on intermittent FMLA, and we now have 2 employees out on FMLA or disability. We had an employee in a ATV accident, so he is out right now.
But, Ms. Maciel, what is FMLA intermittent? What is that?
That means their FMLA is job protected time to be out. Intermittent means that they're not out consistently. They're like, if they need time to, let's say if somebody had a baby, they're helping their spouse out, taking care of the baby periodically. They're just not out maybe an hour or 2 a week or something.
Okay, thank you. And I'm sorry, the 2 jobs that were backfilled to get us to 83 were,
For the hatch irrigation department, and then the central irrigation department. So that's for Mike Gomez and for James.
okay, thank you. Mr. Franzoy.
So I was instructed by Treasurer Manager Josh Smith to also open up a position. Likely this will go through the RFQ, RFP process. But Mr. Shikadance's concerns mentioned earlier, we will be getting somebody in here who could do some PR work and social media work for us.
So if I understand what you said, Mr. Franzoy, it is possible that we will be doing as a direct hire. It is possible that we will be doing it as a RFP contractor.
Correct, and they will also update the website as well.
Thank you. Anything else for, any of, first of all, are there any questions from the board on the HR and safety update? Anything further? Thank you. That brings us to the engineering and maintenance update. Ms. Franzoy.
So for engineering and maintenance, they're pretty wrapped up right now, doing some estimates for some of this grant work. Additionally, we submitted our bid for the city of Las Cruces doing the work on their pipeline construction. We also are getting ready to start doing the Rincon Arroyo washout and prepping for some of that work, as well as kind of kicking into the maintenance season, maintaining our facilities.
Any questions for Mr. Franzoy on the maintenance projects update? Hearing none, that brings us to the consent agenda. Mr. Gamboa.
Yes, sir. Good morning.
Good morning.
So we have 17 licenses, 14 Comcast licenses, they're new aerial fiber lines crossings. 2 Comcast new buried fiber lines, and 1 Quest new aerial fiber line.
Is there a request to pull any of the items from the consent agenda? Hearing none, what is the will of the board? Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second the motion.
I have a motion from Director Rosa, seconded by Director Garai to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? I just have a quick comment, Mr. Gambo. I want to express that I appreciate how these are being presented in our board packet. It makes it very easy to review them and to know whether there are any items to be pulled. Hearing no further discussion, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any of the president, the ayes have it, the motion passes unanimously. That concludes our open session agenda. Is there anything else for open session? Go into closed session. I have a motion from Director Rosa to go into closed session to discuss the agenda closed session items. Seconded by Director Colquitt. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? In the opinion of the president, the ayes have it, the motion passed unanimously. We are in closed session. Secretary, please pause the report. Rick. Being no further items on the agenda for closed session, I'll accept a motion to come out of closed session.
I make the motion to come out of closed session.
Second.
I have a motion from Director Colquitt, seconded by Director Garai to come out of closed session. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Opinion of the president, the ayes have it, the motion passes. We are in open session. I will note for the record that no items were discussed in closed session other than those addressed in the motion, which were the agended closed session items. Is there any further open session business? Hearing none, I will accept the motion to adjourn.
Motion so made.
I have a motion from Director Colquitt, seconded by Director Garai to adjourn. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it, motion passes unanimously. We are adjourned. It is 12:48 on September 7th.